like to welcome everybody to the City of Kalispell Council Chambers. This is Mayor Mark Johnson. And off to my left, I have Mr. Frank Garner, Mr. David Dunn, and Mr. Warren Illy. They're candidates for House District 7 and 9. And one thing before we get started, gentlemen, I want to make sure you have not heard from anybody named Donna Brazil, correct? So all of the questions you're going to get are new to you. So we have not circulated these questions well in advance.
Does she have kind of a stage name too?
Yeah, I think so. So what I want to start with is each person, introduce yourself, and while you're doing that, tell us why you're running for the office and what you think makes you the best choice for your constituents. And also, while you're doing this, can you tell us who your constituents are? And I'm going to start,
a minute.
Over here. All in a minute and a half. I'll give you time. Mr. Illy.
Thank you, Mark. Some of you may wonder why House District 9 is here. House District 9 is kind of referred to as the Evergreen District, but it hits the northeast corner of Kalispell in the Buffalo Hills and the hospital complex area. So that's part of my district that I'm trying to run as a representative. One of my concerns about government is increasing of property taxes. This past few months ago, I opened my 2018 property tax list, and it went up over $400, about a 15% increase. I'm a retiree. I'm still working, but I also get a retirement check. But most teachers' retirement, Social Security, federal retirement, state retirements are tied to the cost of living, which last year was about 2%. So you get a 2% pay raise, and your property taxes goes up 15%. How do you pay it? And I think everybody in this room, including myself, is for a quality, high-quality education. My wife and I raised two boys. They went through the whole school system in Kalispell, and they went to the old Edgerton. It was the oldest school district, or the oldest building in the school district 5, and they got an absolutely excellent education. They had high-quality teachers, high-quality staff. Even the custodian was great. And they got a good education in an old building. And to me, a quality education is tied to quality teachers and a quality staff, not necessarily a fancy new building.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Illy. Mr. Dunn. Minute and a half at best. Watch the yellow card over here. If you see it go up, that's your yellow card, just like hockey.
My name is David Dunn. I'm a born-again believer in Jesus Christ running for the House District 9. I felt it was my patriotic duty and Christian duty to stand up and be counted for my nation at this time. I'm a constitutional conservative who seeks to preserve the rights inherited by the people of this state. As a citizen observer, I've become disillusioned with the liberal nature of our state legislature and government. It seems the only thing that can be agreed upon between parties is how to increase taxes. The Republican Party is often split into conservative and moderate blocs, while the Democratic Party is one singular top-down voting bloc from its leadership. I will be voting pro-life at all times, not just during election season. I will be fighting against new red flag laws proposed by the governor. It is my firm belief that these laws will encroach the due process rights of innocent people. I will be voting no on any new tax proposals. Our problems in government, state and federal, are that we have too much spending and plenty of revenue. We as a nation waste a lot of tax dollars on feel-good endeavors. I support right-to-work legislation. As leaders, we need to promote the economic opportunities of all people in this state. Tired of the ways of virtue signaling environmentalists who close our forests to their false narratives. Without intelligent, safe harvest, our forests will burn hotter and larger. Harvesting raw materials and protecting our environment is not a zero-sum game. Both can be achieved at the same time. Montana on a whole needs more value-added centers for big agriculture, and my overall goal is to create a pro-business environment in the state legislature.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Mr. Garner.
Well, over the next 15 minutes, what I'd like to do now, my name is Frank Garner, and I'm the representative for House District 7 in Kalispell. And I think many of you know me, and hopefully it's not from that speeding ticket back in the 1980s. I hope it's because you know me because I grew up here, because I graduated from this high school, because I raised my family here, and my 3 kids graduated from the same school that I did. I hope you know me because of my life in public service here, whether it's with the Lions Club or Rotary, whether it's coaching kids in sports or Big Brothers and Sisters. I hope you know me from those things in my service to the community. I hope you know me from my service on the police department where I was a patrolman, a detective, and your chief of police. I hope you know that in my service to this community, I've always tried to put the needs of this community first. And so in my work in the legislature, some of the things I've tried to concentrate on are jobs and infrastructure. And I also recognize that educating our kids and having a well-educated workforce is a key asset that this community needs. In addition, I'm concerned about public safety. And I think when we look at the drug crisis and the things that we need to do to try to help improve the future for our kids and for our community, there's some hard decisions we have to make. In my work in the legislature, I've been concerned about making sure we balance our budget. We don't get to print our own money here. At the end of the day, the balance sheet has to have a plus sign on it, and it requires us to make hard decisions. I hope you'll give me a chance to go back and work again on solving problems in the state, some of the most complex problems, because to me it's about investing in our future and making sure 50 years from now people have the same opportunity, not a guarantee, but the same opportunity we have to be successful.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garner. I'm going to go right to Mr. Illy. You brought up real estate taxes and funding of education. So my question for you is, how would you propose funding education in the future if we have the issues today with real estate taxes?
I think we're all Republicans up here, so we're generally support low taxes. The way to fund all aspects of government, including education, is through increasing our industry, our business, our tourism. Mr. Dunn touched on forest management. I'm a retired forester from the Forest Service. I was a timber management officer in the Flathead National Forest. At that time, we were cutting 100 million board feet of timber a year. I can tell you that the forest was growing about 3 times that amount of timber. It wasn't we're going to cut out the forest and no trees left. There's tons and tons and millions of trees around this valley that ought to be harvested, but somehow the environmental community and to some degree the culture of the Forest Service has changed. They don't want to cut trees anymore. I guess they prefer to let them grow old and die and then burn up in a forest fire. According to the University of Montana, Western Montana lost $200 million last year in tourist visits because of smoky skies. And I'm an old-fashioned forester. I believe when a tree is mature and you can harvest it and produce good-paying logging jobs and log hauling jobs and sawmill jobs, and in House District 9, the Weyerhaeuser mills, plywood mill and sawmill are 2 of our biggest industries. The trees are there, why not harvest them instead of letting them die and grow old and then burn up?
Okay. Mr. Garner, same question?
Well, I think it's important for us to recognize that there has got to be a major shift in our tax structure in this state. And years ago, about 35% of our state revenues came from income tax. Now it's approaching 60%. And we're putting all of our eggs in one basket, and what's coming here in a few years is we're going to have another recession. They're cyclical. Unemployment's going to go up, and revenues are going to go down. And it's going to make the hard decisions we had to make this year look easy. And if we don't diversify and if we don't take advantage of these 12.5 million visitors that a study I just read said we had in this state last year, if we don't shift some of the burden to them a little more and quit going back to the property tax and income taxpayers in this state, we are going to suffer the consequences. I spent a year in Afghanistan. They really don't invest much in education. I know what that looks like. And we are not going to spend our way out of these problems, and we're not going to cut our way out of them. It's going to take a very comprehensive approach and a completely different way to look at how we tax in this state, where our revenues come from. I mean, costs are always on the table, but the way that we collect revenue in this state is going to have to change, and it's going to have to change quick.
Mr. Dunn.
I think my goals would be to cut spending on a state level. The American taxpayer is rather tapped out. I mean, wage inflation keeps going up, or doesn't go up. Real inflation for all our goods and services does go up. And what we should do is target our tourists, create a pro-business environment, which means less regulations on raw materials industries, and a realistic approach to the budget would be that we would actually cut stuff and not just speak about it during election time. And my goal would be to challenge folks within the legislature to cut places that are, traditionally not looked at. And our education is very fundamental for our children, and it's a priority for all of us. But our spending and other things in state government need to be specifically looked at, and the belt loops need to be tightened on that level. As far as taxes go, I don't think we can tax our way into prosperity. I think the only way we can do that is have a pro-business environment.
Okay. So the subject of cutting costs at state level has come up. What specific programs do you think should be targeted to reduce the spending at the state level?
Well, I think on a wide-scale basis, I think we should take back our federal lands and start to manage them, because there will be huge economic windfalls from managing our own lands through tourism and raw material extraction. And frankly, there's just a lot of different federal agencies that operate within our state that could be managed by the state at profit.
Okay, but no real specific ideas on the cost to cut then.
No, I'm going to have to look at the state budget, to be more honest with you.
Okay. Mr. Garner, cuts in state budget?
Well, I think first people need to understand we cut nearly $200 million from the budget this time, and we closed offices. People lost their jobs. There were hard decisions already made at the state level. We unfortunately lost the opportunity for a number of people in our community who received case management services, for instance, in their homes. And I think that's an impact that we're still going to see down the road, that we're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, I think, to some degree on those things. And I think what we have to do, you can look at every state budget and find some efficiencies. It really comes down to the services we provide at the state level, right? It's going to be corrections, Department of Health and Human Services, education. I think the biggest thing we can do is shift that tax burden, as I mentioned. I mean, there's if we had one hole we were trying to fill that was about $70 million. If we could have found a way to get $5 from each one of those visitors to our state, we could have filled that hole, not furloughed some of those employees, and not ask those people to lose those case management services. So every session we go in, 1,200 bills, 90 days, what could go wrong, right? And we look at the efficiencies in state government, and we try to find a way with 150 people from different backgrounds to come up with a budget, and it's the one thing we're required to do before we come home, to come home with a balanced budget, and we do it every time. And we passed what I think is probably one of the most conservative budgets we've seen in a long time. So it's a process every year to go in, look at where the efficiencies are, try to save money where we can, and look for those kind of opportunities.
Right on time. Mr. Illy, one of the questions I have down here, a lot of our constituents in Kalispell aren't necessarily in the upper income strata. And they've relied on the Medicaid expansion that we've seen in Montana, and that was a controversial expansion as a result of the Affordable Care Act. What is your position on Medicaid expansion and its future in the state of Montana?
I'll be very honest with you. I know very little about Medicare or Medicaid. I'm old enough to take care of, I get government subsidies because I'm over 65 years old. I worked for the Forest Service for over 30 years, and I've always had the protection of having my employer provide good insurance. I paid part of it, they paid part of it, and I don't have a strong feel for the question you ask. What I do have a strong feel for is that these social and welfare and health programs, they're very good, feel-good programs, and you want to help the disadvantaged American, but in the long term, they don't seem to work. I'm old enough to remember when I was watching a 12-inch black and white TV when President Johnson in the 1960s came on national TV. And in those days, when the president came on national TVs, everybody stopped and listened to him. He started this thing he called the Great War on Poverty. He said it was stupid that in the 1960s, a country as rich as ours would have 15% of the people below the poverty line. He said in 20 years, we're going to eliminate poverty in the United States with all these social programs. Here it is, 50 years later, 60 years later, and guess what? We still have 15% of our people below the poverty line, and it's just, it feels good. You hate to lay off a state employee. You hate not to get the mentally disturbed some help. But basically, America became the greatest republic in the world by everybody pulling themselves up by their own bootstrap. And when you give out handouts, usually the next day the guy or person or whatever is back looking for another handout. Socialism just doesn't work. The free market system is not perfect. It leaves some people behind, but it works better than any economic system in the world.
Okay, and then just for the record, there is no relation between me and former President Johnson. God rest his soul. Mr. Dunn, same question.
I'd be voting against the expansion of Medicaid. Obamacare as a whole has been a disaster for our country. It's skyrocketed prices based off of socialism and virtue signaling by the Democratic Party. It's made it worse for the providers of Medicare, and it's also Medicare used to be something for people that were incredibly disadvantaged. Now it's become for some people in the lower middle income class. What we should do as a state is do personal savings account where you can furlough your wages from your employer into a tax-free account to save for your health issues later in life. We need more free market programs and ideas to solve the Medicare profession. The Medicare profession is so laid down with bureaucracy, laws, and just there's no free market forces in there. So as you see everything keep going up, the only thing that goes down is the free market Medicare, which is plastic surgeries. So what we would really need is to have a free market solution to this problem, not continuing to follow the path of Obamacare, which has been disastrous for our Medicare system, our medical system on a federal level. And you need to pass the bill so you could read it, was Nancy Pelosi's words. And it's just a foolish endeavor.
Okay, and the last question I'm going to ask each candidate, I'm going to start with Mr. Garner. I'm going to go left to right, from my left to right. The last legislative session, understanding we have a Democratic governor. We have a Democrat governor, and the legislators, there is a fair amount of contention between the Democrats and the Republicans in the House and the Senate. What would you do to overcome this, to try to work forward, move Montana forward to get some solutions to some of the problems? Because I see with some of the revenue problems that we're going to see over the next couple of years, we're going to have to be able to work together. And I want to know what each of you would do to work with the Democrats at the House and the Senate.
Starting with me?
Starting with you.
Okay, and 20 minutes?
Not a minute.
Okay. So I think this is one of the most important questions we're going to have. And I'm going to try to explain to you why. And it is, I was reminded when I went to Washington, D.C. for a visit here about a year ago when I was going through some of the Smithsonian museums about how much we've accomplished. I mean, as a country, we have done some awesome stuff. And we did it together. It hasn't been easy. There have been tough things that we have to do. And the same thing is true here. And even with all that contention, as I mentioned earlier, we come home with a balanced budget every year. It's the one thing we're constitutionally required to do. And I've been fortunate that I've had some success in those collaborations and had a chance to pass a number of bills that I think really help improve things for the people in our community, because to me it's about putting our community first. And I don't always get my way, and the other legislators there don't either, and that's part of what makes the process work. And so as we look at some of these difficult decisions that have to be made, what I haven't met are people that don't want our state to be successful. And so when I go there with that thought in mind, that I'm going to work with the people in that legislature that are interested in doing what supports our communities and what's right for them. and we're going to work hard to try to fashion solutions to the problems, the most complex problems in our state. They're not easy. It's not supposed to be. But we find ways to do it, to work together and to try to make good solutions. And it's about that kind of collaboration and working with the people that are around you that makes you successful or not.
Okay. Mr. Dunn?
How am I going to work with Democrats? Well, to be honest, that's a tough thing to do because on a federal and state level, I don't like their leadership. I just don't like anything they've been doing for a long time. So I'm going to be very blunt with them and honest, but I don't know if I can negotiate with their failed policies and expansionism. I'll be cordial. I'd love to work with them to help our state if it's budget neutral, but I'm not sure. I think the Republican Party negotiates a little too much, and the Democratic Party doesn't negotiate at all.
Okay. Mr. Early?
I think the key word in working with the Democrats is compromise and finding some middle ground. There's a great diversity of opinion in Flathead County, in the state of Montana, and in the United States of America. And the way our republic is set up is everybody gets to have their voice. And you can't have it your way. If you're way on the extreme right or extreme left, you're going to get nowhere. You know, one of the extreme right evangelicals, Ted Cruz, started off to be the president. He didn't get very far in the process because he wouldn't compromise. And you know, there's times that you have to stand on your principles and stand firmly. Other times you have to be reasonable and recognize that Americans have different viewpoints, and you have to compromise a little bit if you're going to get anything done. I think that's the problem with the Republican Party. We got right wing, and we got left wing, and we got the middle of the road Republicans, and they can't get along. They're fighting with themselves. And whoever said it before me, and the Republicans or the Democrats stick together like glue. They're in a minority both on the national level and the state level, and they get more done than the Republicans. We have to learn to work together and compromise a little bit and not say, my way is the only way.
Okay. And what I'll do, I'll just give each of you a minute close to ask for the people's vote, and we'll start with you, Mr. Early.
Well, I think I can properly represent the citizens of House District 9. I've lived in House District 9 for over 40 years. My wife and I have raised our family here. I know dozens and dozens of business people. Some of the people running against me don't live in House District 9. So the question I have to ask, do you want somebody that's lived with you in your neighborhood for 40 years to represent you? I can guarantee you if I go to Helena, I won't vote exactly the way you want me to vote every time. But overall, hopefully I'll represent all the constituents in House District 9. House District 9 is mainly an evergreen area. It's a blue-collar neighborhood. The two big businesses are Weyerhaeuser's plywood mill and sawmill. Maybe they're not even as big as the other hospital complex, which is probably the biggest business in Flathead County. So I'm going to try to represent the people of this district, and I think I know them because I've lived here for over 40 years.
Thank you, Mr. Early. Mr. Dunn.
I'm a pro-life candidate who views our constitutional forefathers with reverence in my heart. As patriots, I think we need to push back against unconstitutional gun laws and federal mandates. I think our state needs a food freedom law where we could sell raw milk and other goods on a person-to-person basis, because free enterprise and free markets does a lot better than centrally controlled planning. I think as I said earlier, I think we should take back those federal lands and make them state lands because we're going to manage them better and be better custodians. I think we should protect our fresh water on a state level with earnestness, because it's the greatest resource we have here, and it's going to be the greatest resource in the coming century. I view Trump's election as a spiritual reprieve for our nation, and I think it's time for Christian patriots to get a little bit aggressive. I think we need to challenge the false idols of political correctness and just be honest in our public debate. I think we can respectfully disagree with others without devolving into character assassination, and I'd look forward for the opportunity to represent the people of Evergreen and East Kalispell.
Mr. Garner.
Well, first I want to thank the city for giving us the chance to be here tonight and to have this opportunity to speak to the community. And I know that I'm supposed to look at folks in town here, and I'm supposed to see D's and R's. That's what people tell me all the time. But what I see is my neighbors, the people I grew up with, the people I've served. And the reason that I ran for the legislature is because I want to help solve the problems. I want to help meet the challenges that we have in this community, and I need your support to be able to do that. You know, my backseat of my patrol car was a great barometer in my life. I noticed a lot of similarities in the people that I kept putting back there, not having jobs, not having some of the educational opportunities, having a life where we didn't have a chance to intervene in time to help them. Not everybody is on the same level playing field. I want to help solve those problems in the state, and I'll work with anybody I need to do that. Because for me, it's about investing in our future and having people 50 years from now being proud of the work we did.
Well, I want to wish the three of you the best of luck and the upcoming election. Ballots are out the middle of May for absentee, and then Election Day coming up first week of June. So best of luck. Thank you.
Mark.
Finally.